Hey guys, welcome to the J Sizzle Basketball Podcast. Today, I'm going to be doing my solo team off-season episodes. If you haven't already checked it out, if you haven't already checked it out, we have the Cleveland Cavaliers as well as the Detroit Pistons episodes already out. So go ahead and check those out. Off-season guides for those teams. These are 15 to 20 minute podcasts, as I mentioned before. With those other podcasts. So today I'm going to be focused on the Charlotte Hornets. This one, honestly, don't be surprised if this one goes past 20. I'm going to try to keep it in that 15 to 20 range, but if this one goes past 20, just understand that there's a lot going on with this team right now. So that's why it will go past the 20 if it does. So, with the Charlotte Hornets, I think, I don't really know where to start because there's so much, right? I don't know if I should start with Miles Bridges or let's start with what happened last year and then we can work in the offseason, right? Let's do it in order. So, they were a play-in team, right? Last season, they were a 10 seed. They were the last seed in the play-in. You had Brooklyn as a 7, right? Cleveland as an 8, and then you had Atlanta as a 9, and Charlotte as a 10. And John Collins didn't play. I remember this day when the game, earlier, in the day before the game, and I remember when they said John Collins was out, and Clint Capella was, going to play, but he was still very injured. And he wasn't 100%, shall I rephrase? And I remember thinking to myself, I said, even though it's in Atlanta, I kind of think Charlotte might win because no John Collins. So Bridges should be able to take advantage of that matchup, right? Against Gallinari. And I just thought, I said, Charlotte's had an up and down year. They should have been better during the regular season, but I think they're going to do something with this game. And yeah, they'll lose in the playoffs. Maybe they'll win 1 or 2 games, in the first, maybe they'll win 1 game against Miami in the first round if they get there. I thought to myself, that's it. But I thought, hey, this could be a really big building moment for their team. For a young team to move forward, to win a playing game against Atlanta, and then, eventually maybe, go in and beat Cleveland is what I thought would happen. But that didn't obviously happen the way I thought it would happen. They lost to Atlanta. They lost by 30-plus points without John Collins. They played horribly. Pretty much everybody played bad. Miles Bridges got ejected late in the game. Got frustrated, really. I understand he was frustrated that, their season was over, but he got frustrated and took it too far, and he ended up doing something to a fan in the stands. I think it was whether he pushed a fan or said something to a fan, something of that nature. He did apologize for his actions thereafter, but still, didn't handle himself the right way in that game. So let me go. Hold on, it was on April 13th. Let me check the box score. So it was 132 to 103, right? And here's the box score. We're going to go over the box score. We're just going to do the Hornets. PJ Washington had 17 on 7 of 10 shooting, so he played well. Bridges, 5 of 11 on 12 shooting, or 12 points, 5 of 11 shooting. Should have shot more. Thing, though, is, with LaMelo, how poorly he shot. We're going to get into that in a second, or not a second, later on in this podcast. But I want to stick now with that game, right? That was horrible. That was putrid. They played horrendous from start to finish in that game. I remember watching it. They just didn't look like they didn't even look like a playing team. They looked like a 12-13 seed. And it's kind of crazy because before the year started last year, a lot of us, really thought Charlotte would actually be a pretty solid team. We thought that, LaMelo was going to be an all-star before the year, and he was. He was a substitute all-star, but still an all-star. And we thought that, we just thought that they had something special with him, PJ Washington, Miles Bridges, Terry Rozier, Gordon Hayward. We just thought that and Kelly Oubre, going there, that was a good pickup, obviously, for them. We'll talk about him later. But we thought that this was a team that could really do damage. A lot of us did. A lot of people said, hey, 5-6 seed probably. Maybe get out of the first round if they're lucky. Maybe get win a crazy series, upset someone, shock the league, right? But that didn't happen to be the case. They finished 43-39, which is not a very good record in terms of what kind of talent they have on their team and where they kind of were last year when they lost to Indiana in the play-in. They were the same team to me, it seemed like, all year. And then that happened in the play-in game. They crapped the bed in the playoff game, in the playing game last year, just like they did this year, or this year, just like they did last year. They did the same thing. Indiana, they lost last year by 30, and LaMelo Ball once again, shot 7 of 25, and he shot 7 of 28 in this Hawks game. But it went to show me that two things. When I watched that Hawks, Hornets game, and I saw what Miles Bridges did after the game, and yeah, there's a lot more of him we have to get into in a second, but when I saw what he did after the game with the fan, and then I saw kind of LaMelo Ball, arguing with coaches, yelling at other players, I noticed one thing. As talented as this Hornets team is, they have zero chemistry. They have zero chemistry and zero maturity. To me, you're talking about a team that, who is their leader? That's the biggest question to me. That's the question mark that comes in. LaMelo's their best player, and he's the guy that they want to be their best player and their leader. right? Because if you go look around the league, let's look at some young guys in the league that are around LaMelo's age, right? Trae Young, leader on his team. He's taking his team to the Eastern Conference Finals. Okay, his team was, when he took that team to the Eastern Conference Finals 2 years back, that team's no better than what Charlotte has right now, or had this past year. Maybe a little better, but not enough better to the point where Charlotte is getting bounced out of the playing game by 30. Then if you go and you look at, let me think of another young star that's around his age. Okay, hold on. Donovan Mitchell's a little older, right? I don't want to say him. DeJounte Murray's older, don't want to say him. I'm just trying to think. Hold on, this might take me a second. Okay, I mean, look at, I'm not going to say Cade Cunningham because he didn't, he was unreal last year, but just a rookie year with a bad team, so that's not a good comparison. Trying to think of a team, okay, John Morant, perfect, right? Look at what John Morant was able to do with this team this past year. Even last year, make the playoffs last year. Even they were an 8 seed, they lost 4-2. They played good against Utah. And then this year they come in 4-1 or 4-2. Someone check on that for me right in the comments. But this year then they came in and they made it all the way to the second round. They beat Minnesota 4-2. And then they gave Golden State a really tough series. It took them to 6 games. So that is where I want to see LaMelo get. And that's where the Hornets want to see him get. They want to see him get to the point where he can play at a really high level like he's playing at. He's going to have to get better, obviously. But playing at a really high level like he's capable of and like we've seen. But more importantly than playing at that high level, being a leader, being someone that can galvanize the troops, being someone that when things go wrong, he can be someone that can talk to the guys and just, make sure, hey, let's bring it all together. Let's bring it in. Let's calm down. Hey, yeah, we're 10 games behind 500, but we still got a lot of season left to play. Let's figure out what we need to change, right? And to me, I like LaMelo Ball, but he doesn't seem like that kind of guy. He seems more to me as, I know he's the guy that's just out there, really trying to have fun. I do believe he's trying to get better each and every day, but I don't know if he has the maturity to be a leader yet. And I know he's young; it's only his second year. But look at like I said, there's so many guys, like even Trae Young after a second year, we could already tell he was a leader, right? Took his team to the Eastern Conference Finals, right? I mean, we could tell he was a leader. And then you get someone, more like LaMelo, where it's like, okay, he's a great player, but now we're still to this day, like we were, when he was in high school and overseas, we're still questioning the maturity. Seems like it hasn't really changed, in my opinion, when I watch him. Great player, great shooter. Mid-range shot needs a little work. Defense needs a little work, but can get to the rim. Is a very good playmaker who's efficient, right? He makes everyone on his team better. Good free throw shooter. High IQ player on the court. Doesn't make a lot of bad decisions. He sells tickets, right? I mean, he's flashy, right? He's exciting to watch. He was an all-star last year. He's going to be an all-star probably again next year. But what I'm trying to say to you guys is the leadership part is what they need. The Hornets don't care. If you go to the front office of the Charlotte Hornets and talk to them, right? They don't care about, yeah, they want to, at the end of the day, they care if he's a big figure and he's able to make their brand bigger. But at the end of the day, the management inside that organization cares most about being able to win basketball games and being able to compete for championships. That's why you play this game. That's why ownership drafts players. That's why they make trades. That's why they clear up cap space. It's all, at the end of the day, this game, just like any sport, whether you play football, whether you play soccer, whether you play basketball, whether you play hockey, at the end of the day, every sport is meant for one thing. It's meant to win championships. You're meant to win championships. That's the glory of sports, championships, right? There's a lot of glory to it, but that's the biggest one, championships. So the Hornets are coming in, and their biggest goal is, okay, how can we build this team to compete for a championship? And when they have guys like P.J. Washington, who's a solid young player, we'll talk about him. He doesn't need to prove it, but he's solid. Talk about guys like Kelly Oubre, who was a good pickup. Great pickup for them this past season. Was second to Tyler Hero in Sixth Man of the Year, averaged 16 a game. Great defender, too. Needs to work on his shot, but solid overall offensive player and defender, kind of a good, both sides of the ball kind of guy. But where's the leader? Like I just said, there's no vet on this team that can really hold the guys down, which is an issue. Every team needs one. You saw what Al Horford was able to do with Boston. Even though Boston, obviously, even though you look at Tatum, and Tatum is already like a vet, the way he plays, obviously, and not just the way he plays, more importantly, the way he acts. Tatum is already a vet, right? Donovan Mitchell's already a vet. The way he acts, right? I think guys like RJ Barrett, he's getting there in terms of becoming like a vet in the way he acts and handles his team. He's getting there slowly, but I don't see anybody on Charlotte like that. It doesn't, like I said, you want to have one vet, and then you want to have young guys that can act like vets, right? Charlotte doesn't have either. They don't have any young guys that act like vets, and they don't have any, you know what I'm saying? They don't They don't have any vets to begin with. I mean, who's the oldest player on that roster? Maybe Mason Plumlee, but I don't look at him as a vet. I mean, I think he can help mentor the guys here and there, but not as like an Al Horford type of vet who's been through so much in the NBA. Or, you look at other teams like going and sign Derek Favors, somebody who's been through so much in the NBA. Look, it doesn't need to be a good player when you sign a vet. Al Horford's a good player. Derek Favors is pretty good, not like he used to be. The Charlotte Hornets, like, it doesn't need to be a good player if they go out and sign a vet like this offseason. There's not many guys left, but if they do, there's a couple guys. It doesn't need to be a player that's going to give you 15 and 10 and 5. And he could give you 4, 2, and 2. But you need that veteran presence in your locker room. He can not even play, but you need that veteran presence in this locker room because the Miles Bridges situation, right? Let me get into that. Obviously, we know domestic abuse. He just pleaded not guilty yesterday. He could face up to 11 years in prison if convicted. That's really all I'm going to speak on that. Obviously, if you guys haven't, seen the images of his girlfriend at the time, when he hit her and abused her are out and they're on the internet. Looks really bad, to be honest with you. It's just sad. It's really sad. I feel bad, for her, and I feel bad for his son too, because his son, if anyone saw that phone call with the son talking about, my dad's a bad person. He beat up my mom, right? It's just a very sad situation, really. And the fact that he would even think about doing that, it's just crazy to me. And really, I want to say this to you guys, and then I'll obviously get more into the basketball side, and we'll move on from Miles Bridges, off the court, but it goes to show you that life is really is a really precious thing. And you have to understand that every choice you make in life has consequences. So that's why you have to make the best choices possible. Yeah, that's a big, really bad mistake to make, obviously. But there's little mistakes that can cause just as much damage too. Miles Bridges, not just Miles Bridges, a lot of people that are at his status in terms of how much money he makes, how famous he is, millions of followers on social media, combined, and how famous he is, and everyone knows him. Everyone in the NBA knows him, right? Great player. When people get to that status, sometimes they start to feel too comfortable with themselves, and they start to do things that they wouldn't normally do because they have a ton of money, they have a ton of fame. Not always, but sometimes they do that, and they feel too much power, and they tend to act out and do things. Not sticking up for him because what he did at the end of the day was horrible, and he deserves, all the consequences that are going to come his way. But that's the thing with a guy like a Miles Bridges, right, who we saw do this, right? When he got all the money and all the fame, he acted out. You saw the rap videos, you saw all the rap, videos and all the things he was doing. There just was a lot of bad stuff going on within the last couple of months, and you knew he was going to get into something big trouble-wise soon. You just knew. I hate to say it, but you kind of knew because it was just so much stuff in a short amount of time, and it was something's going to hit bad soon. And that's what I was saying a second ago. That's the difference between a Miles Bridges who had everything for him, who was about to cash in on the biggest payday of his career from the Detroit Pistons. If you guys didn't know, they were about to sign him. And he just messed it up with one bad move. That's why you see guys like Steph Curry, LeBron, KD, Kawhi, Giannis, right? Klay Thompson. It's not that those guys are really good players. They would never do stuff off the court like that. They never would. They're not like that because they understand that they've been granted an opportunity that so many people have tried for and have not gotten, and they understand that it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and they make the most of that opportunity. Miles Bridges didn't make the most of that opportunity. He made the least of that opportunity, right? He made the least of that opportunity. And, I've heard some people say, well, if you look at what NBA players do in their free time, why should the NBA care? The NBA should care because the NBA is building a brand. The NBA is building a brand. And the NBA has certain rules that players need to follow. And if they don't want to follow those rules, if they want to not follow those rules, I'm not talking about the Miles Bridges situation because obviously that's not following legal rules. But if they don't want to follow NBA rules, like Miles Bridges had issues following NBA rules off the court in the past, then they don't have to be in the NBA. It's that simple. When you get drafted, you know what you're going into, right? You're going to the best league in the world. You're going into something that so many kids have dreamed about from day one, right? And you understand though, you're going to be under spotlight. You're going to have to watch everything you do and make sure every move you make is smart. And you know what? It shouldn't just be that makes you do that. You should have already been doing that in your life. You should already know that you should already act like life has a spotlight on you wherever you go, even if you're not famous or big. That's why you need to make the right choices because you never know what can come around to haunt you. Miles Bridges threw away his entire career. Also threw away probably $80 to $100 million as well as his entire career. And Miles Bridges will never play in the NBA again. And to be honest with you, I don't feel bad for him at all. I don't feel bad for him at all because he did it to himself. He did it to himself. And It's just crazy, man. I mean, it's really a sad story. I didn't mean to go on about that for so long, but it's a sad thing. Um, and I'm praying obviously for her, but I'm also praying for the kid too. Definitely a tough thing for him to go through, but I hope those two get through it well, and I hope I hope everything gets resolved. And like I said, I don't wish anything bad on anyone, but I do hope Miles Bridges gets the time he deserves because a lot of people do a lot of bad things and they get time, but then sometimes famous people or, high status people don't get time for doing things because they're famous and high status. I think, he needs to face the consequence that a normal civilian would face for committing an action like this. So that's what I have to say on that. That was long, but I just wanted to, kind of give you guys a little, tip on what I thought about that and let you guys know that, same as I said, a little while ago, you make one bad mistake, life can be over. So, listen, just make the right choices in life. It's that simple. It's really not hard to make the right choices in life. It's really not. So make the right choices in life, and I guarantee you'll have a successful and enjoyable life. You will. If you make the right choices. It's not that hard. It really isn't. Getting more into the team aspect, right? So Miles Bridges, obviously losing Miles Bridges is definitely going to hurt this team. He averaged just under 20 points per game last season. Turned himself into last 3 years we saw in his career, he was kind of just, hey, get to the rim, run pick and roll with me, give me good looks, lobs and stuff. This past year, we saw him play ISO, shoot a lot of mid-range shots, shoot a decent amount of threes, not just cut to the rim to get buckets at the rim, put the ball on the floor and get to the rim. So he really expanded his game. He expanded defensively too. So there's no doubt that he's, him, leaving Charlotte. Well, I don't know what I'll call it, but him not going to be there anymore. Obviously, is gonna really hurt Charlotte. Moving forward. So LaMelo Ball, right? I talked a little bit about his leadership, right? So for me, look, I like LaMelo Ball's a great player. I think he's going to be a really good player in this league for a long time. I just want to see a little more leadership out of LaMelo Ball. That's all I really want to see. I love his game. I think he's very talented. He's going to be good in this league, like I said, for a long time. I just need to see the leadership now. If he can become a leader and just get a little more mature, a little more serious about I think winning games instead of stats, because I think he cares a little bit too much about stats. I promise you, Charlotte can be a really dangerous team. They really can. Because it's going to be all about him. It's going to be all about building around him and making sure that he's the guy that is always going to be the leader for the guys. So, yeah, I mean, look, I mean, I think, like I said, he's young. I think he'll eventually, get there. But, we see a lot of these young guys in the league now. They're already super mature coming in. So it's time for him to start, getting going on that. He's a little behind. So we talked about LaMelo, Miles Bridges, right? Terry Rozier, a volume type of scorer, type of guy who, can give you 30 one night and then 10 the next night. He averaged about 17 this year. Solid defender. Probably their best defender, right? And that's one thing with this team that I'm going to go into now. Just covered Terry Rozier a little bit. But one thing I'm going to go into now is the defensive side, right? Defensively, Charlotte is very lacking. They're one of the worst defensive teams in the league. Only two defenders on that team stand out to me. Kelly Oubre and Terry Rozier. That's it. No one else on this team can really defend. So that's a big issue, I think. So, I think when you look at that, defense is still, even though, we, the last couple of years we've gotten into a game where it's all about shootings, where it's all about shooting. That's all everyone does now. Shoot the three ball, go to the rim, but you need to be able to play defense to win championships, right? If you don't play defense, you're not going to win championships. You're not going to compete. In the big playoff games or the play-in games. And that's part of the reason why Charlotte struggled. 132 points they gave up against Atlanta. It's a lot. Atlanta's a good offensive team, but that's a lot of points to give up no matter who, even if you're playing the Warriors with KD in 2017. That's a lot of points to give up in a game. Especially playing game where the game's slowed down. That's a lot of points to give up. So, defensively they need to improve. PJ Washington, I think, I don't really know what to think about PJ Washington. I think he's not a bad player. I don't think he's great. I think he's a 78 overall kind of player. I think we thought he was going to be a lot better a year or two ago as he was, first coming in the league, and he hasn't really taken that next step, in my opinion. He's kind of been stagnant his whole career. So I think Charlotte should give him one more year, see if he can grow and get better. If he can't, I think Charlotte should look to move on from him, see what they can do, trade him, see what they can do with that. So that would be that for that. In terms of Kelly Oubre, talked about him. He was a great pickup. He's signed for another 2 years, I believe. So that should be really good for them. That should be a big advantage for Charlotte. He's been a really good player for them, or was a really good player this past year. So, and relatively young still. So definitely good for them. I like that pickup last year. And he should gel well for the next couple of years with that team too. You need a center, right? I think let me go over this really quick, right? That's going to be one of my three. So let me get out my notes here. I wrote my notes down. So The three biggest things for Charlotte this offseason is three things. The biggest thing is find chemistry in your locker room. Find maturity. Find chemistry and maturity in your locker room to the point where everyone can agree to play together at a high level. Everyone's not getting in arguments every other game on the sideline. Everyone's not getting in trouble off the court. Get more mature, mature up, and also learn how to build team chemistry. And I promise the record will be better next year. They'll win 47, 48 games if they can do those two things, and they'll be a playoff team. So you got to do those two things, though. You have to do those two things. I don't believe that team can do those two things right now, the way I look at it, because all the things I've seen in the last couple of months. But we got to see, man. We got to see. It's definitely going to be something interesting. That's number one. Number two, Gordon Hayward's getting paid $30 million a year this year, as well as next year. That's a little too much. I think Gordon Hayward's a good player. I don't think he's worth 30. I think he's probably worth like 17 or 18 at this point in his career. So I think you need to try to figure out if you can move on from that contract. It's not, if you had one more year, I'd say just ride it out. But the fact that you're a young team and just trying to, put as many pieces around LaMelo as you can, you need to move on from that contract because it's 2 years. Like I said, if it was one, just run, play him out the whole year and, whatever. See if you can find a trade partner. But if you can't, it's 1 year, but it's two. It's a lot. And I think the third year, I think he's I don't know, he might have a player option. So he probably keep that player option, honestly. So I think they have him for 3 more years. So he'll keep that player option for $30 million because he's not getting $30 million anywhere else. So, but at the end of the day, like I said, Gordon Hayward's not a bad player. He'll give you 17, 18 a game, right? He's just not really great defensively. He's a decent passer, actually. Not great defensively. Not really like a crazy athlete. He's much slower than he was a couple years ago because of all the injuries. He's not as aggressive. He used to be really aggressive on offense and actually pretty aggressive on defense. He's not really able to do that anymore because of the injuries, like I said, that have slowed him down. So, next year we'll probably give them even less than 18 like he gave him this year. Probably give him like 16. So I just think that at that money, you should look to trade him. I would look to a team like not the Lakers because the Lakers don't have money. Look to a team that is right there in terms of they're right there. They're one piece away from winning a championship. They have enough money for Gordon Hayward, and a contract like Gordon Hayward, they wouldn't mind trading some young players for him or a draft pick because they feel like he could be the one that could take him over the top. The Lakers could be that team, but you probably have to put Westbrook into that deal, and I don't think that is a good deal for Charlotte. I know Michael Jordan was interested in Russell Westbrook for a little while in the Charlotte management over there in Charlotte at the arena there, but I don't see how Westbrook fits with that team, like next to LaMelo, next to Terry Rozier. Now you just have too many guards that it's just too many guards that score. Like you're gonna have Russ 17, Rozier 17, and LaMelo score 20. Like that's too much scoring. And as weird as it sounds, it's too much scoring from your guards. Like you need to try to figure out how you can work more scoring down low, meaning your power forward, your center, instead of worrying so much about your guards. Guards are more important. Well, actually, that's a tough argument. We can. I'll do a podcast on that one day with special guests. What position is more important in basketball? The guard position or the forward position? But guards have become extremely important in the last couple of years compared to years past. But forwards, centers, the position is still very important. You look at the best players in this game, right? Like, if I can name the best players in this game, Steph Curry, and this is no order, I'm just throwing these names out here, right? Steph Curry, although I do think he's close, first or second, but I'm not getting into that. Steph Curry, Giannis, KD, LeBron. Steph Curry, Giannis, KD, LeBron. Wow, this is tough. Let me think. Hold on. Probably maybe like Jokic, maybe. I think that's a good one. But look at all those guys. Jokic. He's a center, right? Okay, but he's a big man. I was talking about power forward. I was talking about forwards and centers, right? Jokic, forward/center, right? So he's in that forward center category. KD, forward center category. Giannis, forward center category. LeBron, forward center category. Curry's the only guard, right? There's a lot of good guards in this league, like I just said a second ago, and you need guards, but you still, you look at some of the best teams in the league, and a lot of them have the best forwards and big men. So you need that aspect still. And Charlotte doesn't have that. And if you trade for Westbrook, you're getting too guard heavy, and you're not, it's not really helping your team. You're getting too guard heavy, and then you don't know how Westbrook's going to fit in with LaMelo. He may take so many shots and opportunities away from LaMelo, who's trying to develop his game at a young age, and take shots away from other guys like PJ Washington, we're still trying to figure out this is his make or break year. So no, bringing Westbrook to that team does not make any sense to me. That would be a realistic Gordon Hayward trade, though. I'm talking about money swap wise that I think would work for the Lakers. But if I'm the Hornets, I would say no to that trade. Thinking of other teams that can make a maneuver for Gordon Hayward, looking at the salary here of different teams. The Knicks have a slot, but they're not making that move. Let's see here. Portland, no, they have a slot, but they're not making that move. Detroit has a slot. I don't see them doing anything. I mean, yeah, that's going to be a tough contract to move because, like, look at a team like Detroit, right? Like I said, it has to be an older team that's, like, with a bunch of veterans that's, like, ready to win, like, that can only win for, like, the next year or two. That has, like, one more slot. And they don't care about giving up draft picks or, like, a young guy or two they have because they know they're not going to be good in two or 3 years anyway. So they're like, hey, throw all the chips in to win a championship in these next 2 years. The Lakers fit that description perfect because I think LeBron's got, like, 2 more good years left in him. But they just don't, like, they don't have the money. And the only way to work the money out would be to trade Westbrook. And like I said, that's not happening. So, no, I mean, I don't know, maybe try to restructure Gordon Hayward's contract because obviously if you cut him, you still got to pay him. So maybe restructure if you can. That's probably going to be to agree upon, to be honest with you. But if you can't restructure, I would definitely look into restructuring if I'm the Hornets. See where that can take you. But, yeah, so that would be the second move. I talked about the leadership maturity, Gordon Hayward's contract. And I think the third biggest move for them, with the remaining offseason and going into next season, towards the trade deadline, you need to trade for a big man. I mean, I like Montrezl Harrell. He wasn't a horrible pickup, but he's not like a starting center. Mason Plumlee's not a starting center. They worked with Biyombo a little bit last year at the beginning of the year too. He's not a starting center. Like, Charlotte hasn't had a good starting center in, like, probably since, like, literally 1865. You know what I'm saying? And like, they need a good caliber starting center. They've never had a good caliber starting center. And if they could have a good caliber starting center, everyone knows that a good caliber center helps out a point guard a lot. Run pick and roll, spreads out the floor, things of that nature. Like, even though Embiid and Harden only played a couple games together, when they played together, very good. Very good, because you see that chemistry. Look at how good Trae Young and Capella have been since Capella's been in Atlanta. Very good. That chemistry between the center and the guard is unmatched. Look at Jamal and Jokic. I can't wait for Jamal to come back next year because the chemistry with those two guys is unreal. Last time Jamal was healthy and we saw a full season out of Jamal, he took them they went to the Western Conference Finals, and Jamal and Jokic took over every game. So that's what I'm saying. You need a good point guard center tandem in this league. Even, like I said, yeah, the game's trending more towards shooting guards and forwards, but you still need a good point guard center tandem in this league. Charlotte has a great point guard. Now they need the center, right? So next offseason, Miles Turner's available. That would be a really good pickup. For them, I was looking at centers for next year, right? And here's what I would do. This year, I'll try to move on from Gordon Hayward's contract. If you can move on from Gordon Hayward's contract, here's what I do. You move on from Gordon Hayward's contract. Even if you have to trade it for like 2 second-round picks, who cares? Doesn't matter. That's a salary dump kind of trade. Now, if you can get a decently young guy, you won't get a good young guy for Gordon Hayward. If you can get a decent young guy, like a Cam Reddish or someone like that, I'll make that trade. Fine. Because you can develop Cam Reddish. You can develop a guy like that. Not a problem. But more than likely, you probably won't get a really good young player. Like I said, you'll get a player at that level. And if you can't, you take the draft picks. It's not a big deal. It's a salary dump trade, as I just said. That's all it is. So the goal is to try to dump. He's going to pay 30. My goal is take $22 million or less and dump. $22 million meaning I would only trade for a player with $8 million on his contract at most, or that 22 to 30 meaning that 30 is if I just traded for draft picks and outright, and some team takes that 30 million and I book out 30 million on my end, and I'm 30 million free with Gordon Hayward. 60 million over 2 years, 90 million I think over 3 if he signs the player option. So huge. I don't think what that could do for their cap space. They're already like 9 in cap space. They do have good cap space. They didn't give out a lot of bad contracts other than the Gordon Hayward one, but the Gordon Hayward one is like really what's making them go from, okay, we're at 9 and we can sign one big free agent and then one decent player, to going, hey, we can get to like 2 or 3 and sign one like really good player and another really good player, right? So I would do that. Trade Gordon Hayward, right? I would look after trading for Gordon Hayward. I would play out this year. Try to make some trades if you can, right? PJ Washington's not playing good. I think by All-Star break, you should try to make a move. If you can't, trade him in the offseason. You might be able to put a decent package around PJ Washington and some draft picks, even if he doesn't play well, because some teams might still have belief in him. So that could be a potential opportunity. But the biggest thing for them is I'm looking at next year's free agents, centers. That's the biggest position for me. And I'm saying, okay, you have Miles Turner, you have Al Horford. I'm going to break this down for you. I talked about veteran presence, right? Al Horford could provide a perfect veteran presence. He's done it on every team he's been on. He could provide a perfect one. Then, after Al Horford, you bring in Miles Turner as your starting center. Miles Turner doesn't like Indiana. They haven't really helped him grow his game too much. He's solid. He put up 14-15 for Charlotte with like 10 boards, and he's one of the best defenders in the game, too. Probably not 10 boards, probably 7. He's not a great runner, but that's fine. He can run pick and roll with the Melo really well. He's a great athlete. He can shoot, so he can spread out the floor from both mid-range and three-point range. perfect. Miles Turner would fit so perfect with Charlotte. Like, if he signed with Charlotte, even as a Heat fan, I would honestly be like ecstatic to see how that works out because he would fit perfect with that team. Sign Miles Turner, sign Al Horford for the veteran presence. Yeah, he comes out the bench, will probably only, that would be in a year from now, probably going to give you like 10 points per game. Fine, who cares? He's a veteran presence. He'll help develop those, he'll help, teach those guys what it's like in the NBA, how to get through the tough moments, how to mature up and things of that nature. So that could help. That's what I would do if I'm Charlotte. I would make those two moves. And then after that, I would look now into saying, okay, so if that's considering I moved on from Gordon Hayward. I signed Miles Turner and Al Horford. I move on from PJ Washington. Now I need to go get a power forward because I don't have a power forward. Jeremy Grant's a free agent. Let's say he doesn't like Portland. Could happen, probably won't, but let's say he doesn't. Look for Jeremy Grant. You could look at Christian Wood for Dallas if he doesn't sign the extension. Kristaps Porzingis wouldn't be a terrible option. Kyle Kuzma might be the best option there. Actually, I would go for Kyle Kuzma. I don't think he'll stay in Washington. I really don't. So I would go for Kuzma. He might, though, because he could build a really good career there, buddy. Let's see. But if not, I would go for Kyle Kuzma if I'm Charlotte. I'll put all my eggs in the basket to go for Kyle Kuzma. And then you could have a starting five coming out, not this upcoming season, the season after. I know it's a long way away, but just understand that these teams, when they rebuild and they have young teams, they have to think years ahead. Because right now, Charlotte's in a big bump. They're not really good enough to be a playoff. They're not good enough to be a playoff team. And they're not so bad to the point where they're like a lottery team. Well, they are a lottery team, but they're not so bad to the point where they're like bottom of the East, like we see teams in the East, right? But they have young guys and they can be good, but they still just need a couple more pieces. So for them, they're in a tough spot, right? But for them, imagine if you could bring out a starting lineup of LaMelo, Terry Rozier, Kelly Oubre at small forward, then at power forward, you bring in Kyle Kuzma, then you have at center, then you have Miles Turner. You have three good young guys. You have LaMelo, who's an all-star. You have Kyle Kuzma, who maybe one day can get back to all-star level. You don't know. He really maybe can. Well, he wasn't all-star ever, but he can get back to like that 18 to 20 point per game range where he was with the Lakers. He almost was there last year with Washington. He could be an all-star. Miles Turner, I don't think he'll be an all-star, but he could be a defensive player of the year guy. And then you have Kelly Oubre, who's still relatively young. Terry Rozier, who's still relatively young. You would need a little more work off your bench. Martin's not bad. Keep him. Obviously, I think, they did re-sign him, so continue with him. He's not bad. But you would need more work off the bench, like I said. But the bench players, you can always sign bench players to small contracts and stuff, so I'm not worried about that. But that starting five, if they can bring that starting five out in a couple years, like that's a good starting five. So look, if I'm Charlotte, before I wrap it up, I'm shifting my focus to figuring out the locker room issues. Go get a center. And then your last thing, and then Gordon Hayward's contract. So center, locker room issues, Gordon Hayward's contract. Those are the three things for Charlotte, in this offseason specifically, because I know I'm supposed to keep it to this offseason, but this offseason has just been so weird for Charlotte. So it's almost like they're almost trying to think of next season and then even the offseason after that. This offseason, if you can, try to move on from the Gordon Hayward contract. That's the big thing. Try to move on from the Gordon Hayward contract because there's not enough centers out. There's not centers out there that will really make them better. So move on from the Gordon Hayward contract. That's the biggest thing for this offseason. And then, like I said, look into next offseason to get those centers. And then look for next year to possibly, make a move with PJ Washington or try to make a move with a young guy that you think isn't really playing at the level you want, but you think that another team would take him because they think they can develop him well and you can get a decent package back. So look, as far as Charlotte goes, I don't know really what to expect next year. Like I said, if the maturity comes and the locker room changes, I think they can be a playoff team. But if not, which I don't think it will, to be honest, I think they'll be sitting in the same spot, 10 or 11 seed. They'll either just make the play-in and lose again, or they'll just be outside. So, it'll be interesting to see, and I'm excited to see, in a way, even as much craziness as there's been, I'm excited to see how that Hornets team plays next year because LaMelo Ball is going to have a lot more pressure on their shoulders without Miles Bridges. So, should be interesting to see. And, again, guys, thank you so much for tuning in, and just make sure you go ahead and subscribe, like the podcast, check out the website, put a new article up talking about, trying to remember what the article, the Jalen Brunson signing, talking about the New York Knicks, which will be in my podcast tomorrow. So yeah, that will be exciting. And, again, thank you. And just go ahead and make sure you're always tuning in and checking things out.